Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be hailing from. This is the Fedora Podcast. Today, we're going to answer the question, what is going on in 2025? What's going on with Fedora Linux? What's going on with the community? New year, new goals, and I can think of no one better than our very own Matthew Miller, the Fedora Project Lead, to join us for this episode. Matthew, welcome back.
Hi, Eric. Always very nice to be here. In the intro video, there's the Fedora logo, very beautiful, and then like some V's or sevens or what are those?
So that's a great question. But the video was actually designed by some of the Fedora community. So I don't know that it's anything in particular. Maybe it's some Bob Ross birds flying around,
Okay,
but
okay.
uh, but that's a good question. I'll have to track down our team and ask. I mean, that's the beauty of the community that we have within Fedora. Um, I am not a graphic designer. I am not a video, not an animation specialist. So I put the call out in one of our matrix rooms, and we had not one but multiple people jump in to create that intro video and the music that you hear. So none of that is commercially licensed. That is something that a couple of I suppose they're amateurs decided to create and contribute to the Fedora podcast.
That's awesome. And there doesn't need to have to be hidden meaning. I just, like to look for it when it's there.
Yeah, and I don't think I even thought to ask it. I mean, it just looked kind of cool, and it went along with the feeling of the video. So we rolled with it.
It does look cool.
So for those that don't know you, Matthew, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us what you do, and I'd say what you do for work. And usually our questions are: tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do for work, what you do for Fedora. But those two are actually one and the same, and then a little bit about what you like to do for fun.
Okay, yeah. Um, see, well, I am Matthew Miller. I have been the Fedora project leader for over 10 years now, and I work for Red Hat. I am a distinguished engineer at Red Hat, which is a very I don't know, lofty title. I hope I can carry well. And I'm actually also now a distinguished engineer and manager, which is probably a little bit of our upcoming conversation as well. And what were those questions? I don't know. What do I do
So
for Fedora?
tell us a little bit about yourself and what you like to do for fun.
Um, wow. For fun, um, I don't know. I've been carrying firewood up the stairs. Does that count? I don't know. It's winter time fun.
I mean,
My
I don't mind
family.
doing housework
Um,
as long
it's
as I have, like, an
nice.
audiobook or a podcast
Um,
going.
yeah, no, I like to read. I used to do a lot of playing with Lego, but then I had kids, and then there wasn't room for all the Lego. I had to move it for children. I don't know. But let's see, I've been doing some stuff with little programming microcontrollers with Circuit
Mm,
Python. I think that's kind of a fun hobby thing for home automation and art projects. A lot of my fun also is just stuff in Fedora because I love Fedora and the Fedora community is, my life. So I'm going to FOSDEM coming up and
mm.
then Fedora Council Hackfest face to face after that. And I'm looking forward to that quite a lot. It's really nice to see people from all around the world and all the different parts of the Fedora and wider open source free software development communities.
Well, we are glad to have you back, and by now, I imagine a large number of folks have heard, but let's deal with the obvious question first. Let's get this out of the way, because I know I was shocked but you've actually been the Fedora project lead for twice as long as I've worked for Red Hat. Um, as I recall, you're the longest serving FPL, but you're stepping down later this year.
Yeah, and it's coming up on being not just the longest serving, but longer than everyone else all put together.
Mm,
So I think that's a pretty good milestone. I love the job. It is a dream job for me, and I think probably for a lot of people, it's an amazing, unique thing. It's been a huge privilege to do. Um, I could keep doing it forever, but get to a point where I think, well, should I keep doing it forever? I think it's time to give somebody else a little bit of a chance, give the project maybe some fresh way of looking at things. And yeah, it's been 10 years, which is I don't know, it just felt kind of like a milestone. And I also turned 50 last year, which also one of those big milestone kind of numbers. I thought maybe let's see what's next for both me and for Fedora. Uh,
mm.
But I'm not going away from Fedora. I still want to. There's some things that I am very passionate about. Um, I would like to do more of playing with our discourse forum and continue aid to move everybody away from email and mailing lists. Um, I'll get you all there. And other general involvement. But I'm also a little bit looking forward to having a role that feels more clearly defined in scope. I'm going to be a people manager in actually the same team that I'm on right now, the community Linux team at Red Hat, and hope help the next FPL kind of come into the job with some mentorship background and like someone to go to when some insane situation arises, as it always does. Um, I think we in the past, like I had good support from some of the previous Fedora project leaders, but uh, there wasn't really very much institutional support, and I want to make
Hmm.
sure that for the next project leader as well.
So you're not going far at all. In fact, you're most likely the next FPL will report to you as a direct report. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's probably so. I have to get some of the details worked out. And I do hope to have. So my official plan is to do the transition at the release of Fedora Linux 42 or the week after, as we normally do with our leadership roles. Uh, so that I started in this role with Fedora Linux 21, and going from 21 to 42 seems nice. And then of course. Uh, as a science fiction and fantasy nerd, number 42, thank you, Douglas Adams, has a important place in my heart. So I wanted to make sure I made it through that milestone. There's
If
also
you didn't make the Hitchhiker's Guide reference, I was going to.
yeah, there was also a while ago Ben Cotton and Marie Norden and I had a joke where we'd written all the schedules for Fedora Linux 42 and hadn't planned for beyond that. Not that there was any stop there. That's just how far the timeline had been extended out to. So we kind of pushed everything in the future to after 42 or 40. So also like a good stop.
So turning the conversation a bit more positive. Obviously, you moving out of the FPL role is very bittersweet. But how has the role kind of changed and evolved over the last 10 years?
Yeah. I think that when I started with it, I was very hands-on in a kind of a technical way. I mean, I come from a sysadmin background, and I did a lot more like, here, I'm doing this actual coding kind of thing. And as it's gone on, I felt the less of a need to do that. And I don't know how much of that is me changing, the role changing, and some of the project changing and getting, we've kind of built up more structure around the role, the Fedora Council and some of the leadership setup we have. When I started, the Fedora Council was brand new. That was something that I invented, I guess. That was previously there was a Fedora board. It was that was kind of an advisory board that didn't really have any particular authority, and at the time, um, somewhat detached from the day-to-day goings on in the project. So I wanted to make sure that we had a leadership body that was actually, comprised of people who were actually doing things in the project. That's where the Fedora Council comes from. Um, and so the council is also something that is a big support to the Fedora project leader, because rather than it being the one person, there are a number of other people who are both in appointed and elected roles that kind of share some of that load. And also there is the community architect role. Justin Flory in now. Previously we called it the F cake for reasons. Marie Norden, Brian Etzelbeard, Remedy Cosmaker. We had so that role was created by my predecessor Robin, because she got so burned out, and she's like, "I'm going to set this up better for the next person," and she really did. So I appreciate that. Um, and so having that support all around has changed. I think. And of course, the project's grown, technology's grown, computers are different. Like somewhere in that 10 years, the year of the Linux desktop went by and we didn't even notice.
Yeah, Noah and I were joking about that a couple of episodes ago. It's like it happened. And, like
Yeah.
I use my iPad, my MacBook, and my Linux laptop like they're one and the same. Like you said, it just kind of cave and win. It's like here we are. This is
Yeah.
what we do. Well, hopefully you have warned the future FPL that they're that this crazy IT guy will drag them onto a podcast several times a year.
I didn't want to scare them off during the interview process.
That's a good plan. That's a great plan.
But in seriousness, I think in the job description, podcast media kind of thing is still part of the job description. So I'm
Oh, good.
expecting it if
So
they're. Yeah.
so as we move more into the into kind of looking at 2025, obviously the FPL change is going to be big. But what about on the technical side? So this year we'll have two releases per the norm. The penultimate Fedora Linux 42, and then of course followed by 43. Are there any major highlights? Are there any major projects in flight now that are worth mentioning?
Yeah, so there's a number of big things. I think let's see where to start. I think the one I'm maybe most excited about is the image mode, which is like the
Mm.
top silver blue, white, and all that.
Hmm.
Red Hat is investing a lot of money in that for RHEL because they've kind of seen how cool it is. Took a little while for them to come around, but there's a lot of interest in that, and I'm really looking forward to that becoming our default offerings for everything.
Mm.
Are some technical things that need to be finished up before it can really be meant for common consumption. But it's really has a lot of potential, and I think that's kind of a really neat path forward for Fedora. It makes an easier way, and just overall, the entire atomic approach I think is better for a lot of reasons. I think separating out the base operating system and your applications gives you a lot more flexibility as a user, and um, I think the image mode approach, which kind of brings cloud native Docker container developer approaches to how you run and administer your operating system, I think that's very cool and very powerful. And I think maybe bring a new set of people into the Fedora world because they're familiar with things in a different way. While at the same time, the design intends for like, DNF will still work. Things will still kind of be familiar to people who've been around all the time, so it'd be kind of that would be a nice bridge connecting worlds. I think that's pretty awesome. Um, Another big thing, kind of more of a Fedora internal thing, but a big difference. We're switching our Git forges from the homegrown Pagure.io to Forgio, and I think that's I'm really looking forward to that. The Pagure was great, but it really just didn't get the level of external community we needed to have a big development around it. And Forgio has a lot of energy. Features that aren't here now will probably be there by the time we get everything implemented and in place because that's just happening. So I think that's very exciting. And, it's will be feel fat, have a more modern interface, feel faster, give us a lot more capability for thing. I think that's um, it's going to also help it be easier to for new people to onboard into the project
Mm.
because more familiar, easier to use interface. Um, Another big thing, the RISC-V architecture. This is an
Mm.
open hardware architecture where really is a leader. A lot of the bring up work hardware manufacturers have done, like they use Fedora Linux as their first bootstrap. And I want to make sure that we continue that into actually like consumer production devices as those are starting to come be more and more available. And I hope that we're able to um, not miss out on it in the way we ended up doing with ARM. We learned some lessons from that. I mean, ARM is still important to Fedora and will continue to be, but I think we can do even better with RISC-V. So I'm hoping we can get some big movement on that coming up in the next year.
It's funny you mention Risk 5 because in 2 weeks on this very show, on this very channel, we'll actually be interviewing a member of the Risk 5 team and talking about their interactions with Fedora. So just a free advertisement there for next week's or
Nice,
for the next episode.
nice. Who is that?
Isaac Shute from
Oh,
the
yeah,
Risk 5 and Linux Foundation.
cool, cool. That's awesome. Say hello. Uh,
Will do.
Um, and then there's some internal stuff, I guess, Red Hat things that I think are kind of going to show up in Fedora in interesting ways. Red Hat has a new one build system to rule them all system called Conflux, which is based on Tecton pipelines in OpenShift Kubernetes. If that means something to you, you might find it interesting. If it doesn't, don't worry. We're going to try and make this not that scary. Um, I think this isn't something that Red Hat's like forcing on Fedora. I see it more as an opportunity for Fedora because our build tooling, things like Koji, Bodhi, stuff around that, has basically been in maintenance mode for the whole time I've been the project leader. There's really not been investment development there. And every time we tried to do something cool and new, it kind of just got bogged down in lack of
Mm.
resources. So this is something where Red Hat is putting a lot of resources into something to modernize build systems at Red Hat, and we can take advantage of that at Fedora as well. I think in particular, what I'd like to see, well, first of all, I'd like to see better container builds and like a whole better pipeline stuff around building containers because that will be useful for image mode and is also useful for a lot of other things. Um, but also um, are the workflow we have in packaging and being a Fedora contributor at that level is really very much based on the same, slightly moved forward from what we are using the old version control system CVS. We have dist-git. It was dist CVS long ago, and we didn't really ever fully move to a Git-based way of doing
Mm.
things. And at that time, that was really before Git forges. The GitHub wasn't really a big deal. In fact, actually, Jesse Keating, who did release engineering for Fedora at the time and did the dist-git migration from CVS, he then went to GitHub, kind of on the strength of that work. And that's why that's why GitHub took off, I guess.
There you go.
But when we started this, the workflow we have, like pull requests and those kind of things, weren't normal. We have the ability to do those things in our workflow now, but they're kind of on the side. And I'd really like us to see us move towards a pull request kind of workflow where we
Mm.
have a lot more automation and a lot of the like incrementing numbers and changing paths and whatever, like that can be automated, and then builds can happen when you make a commit, and tests can automatically happen, and all of that. So I think that Conflux will enable us to have a back end for that, but the workflow and the actual like how packagers' lives are is something that I think we can revisit and make better in Fedora, regardless of what the back end technology happens to be. It just happens that an investment in that will help us with modernizing our own stuff.
Mm.
Um, I'm probably going to forget something, which I also think is a big exciting development. But um, there's a lot of stuff. Um, Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on in the AI world as well. And I don't know if uh, there's also a lot of skepticism for people in the open source world. My Mastodon is all full of AI hate, skepticism, sarcasm, which much of which is very, very justified. Um, I think from the survey we did of the Fedora community, people's biggest concerns are privacy and security. They don't want things being shipped off to some cloud thing, and we're not going to do that in Fedora.
Mhm.
Um, and resource consumption as well. And I think a lot of what we should look at is things that are like machine learning, things that can be done with less processing overhead, things that can happen quickly and kind of give you some real user benefits without having to again ship things off to some big company that's going to be tracking you, and without using more resources than is really reasonable for what happens in return. Um, I always laugh at the things where people are trying to get ChatGPT to do math, and the things that computers are good at, suddenly they're terrible at. And we want to make sure we're using the computers in an intelligent way for what they're actually good at, the things that they can do.
So, so not just from a technical perspective, and not just from an internal technical perspective, but are there any major milestones, any major goals we've set forth for 2025?
We're still working on our project of doubling the number of active contributors. So we've got a number of things that are advancing towards that. Yeah. The Flock to Fedora conference is coming up this June, and announcements should be coming out like right now, real soon. So it will be in Prague this year in June. So I am very much looking forward to that. And we have put together our themes for the call to papers for that, where they're kind of empowering collaboration is one of them, and that's actually kind of a lot about our tools and the things like the new GitForge discussion forums, project management, like how we can make the project tooling easier for people to get involved in, easier for the people who are already involved, more powerful for connecting us all together, and getting out of the way when it should get out of the way. So that's one of the tracks there. And another one is going to be about welcoming new voices. So that's paths for new contributors and new contributor growth. So we're going to be really working on the things that are blocking that. Where do people who are interested in the project drop out? Where do people stumble? What can we make better? So a lot of things around there. And I think connected to that is our mentorship effort, where we want to make sure that
Mm.
everyone in Fedora can have a mentor and everyone has the opportunity to be a mentor, because found really that like that human connection is really the best way to get anybody into a project. Much better than a list of here's your easy first bugs or something like that.
Hmm.
Better to come and see what the community is all about, and then there'll be plenty of stuff that you'll find interesting to do once you're here. And then we're also going to have some topics there about these things I've been talking about with the AI and RISC-V and all the technical things, image mode, and all that.
Mm. And there's just so much going on, and even just from a podcast perspective, I spend some of my time idling in the marketing side of Fedora. Um, I'm kind of a technical marketer by day, and lend some of that to Fedora as well. Uh, but I can tell you that a lot of the technical conversations, a lot of the technical topics we have on the show, the viewership has grown immensely. So obviously these initiatives are working. Um,
Cool. And yeah, this in some ways is part of those initiatives too, because it really does help grow the community. So thank you for that too.
oh, I enjoy it, and any chance to grab a microphone and hold someone captive for 30 minutes and tell them what I'm thinking. But so it's great to see the community growing, and anytime that we can get some of those introductory type, not just conversations, but also some of the mentoring, some of the walkthroughs, can really help grow a community. It's been really exciting. Gosh, I've been doing this for almost 2 years now, as the Fedora podcast host, and it's great to see the community growing. I know when I started a few years back that. It was very, very cautiously dipping my toe in going, "Is this okay? Can I help with this?" And that's not the attitude of the community at all. It's like, "Oh, you're new? Cool. Hey, let me show you all these things. Let me introduce you to these other people, and hey, did you know there's a Fedora social hour?" Which inevitably there's always some big marketing meeting inside Red Hat that's always scheduled at the same time, so I never make it, but the attitude is so welcoming, and it's very warm, and you never hear, well, dummy, go read the docs, or why don't you just go out to the wiki page and figure out how to do that yourself. It's always very organic, very conversational.
Yeah, I love that about the Fedora community. And I guess this going way back to the why am I leaving kind of thing. I do feel like things are in really good shape, and um, I feel confident that Fedora is going to be great. It's going to continue to be fine. I don't have any worries about that, and that's a nice place to leave a job, I think. Where it's,
Well,
at least
especially
at a
since you
high
get
point,
the
because I think it's going to continue to go more and more in those positive directions. Um, but yeah, while it is aiming up, that's nice.
especially since you get the closure of taking your time and transitioning your responsibilities over to your not predecessor, person that comes after you. I speak for a living. Can you tell? So as we kind of wrap up this episode, I wanted to ask the question that we ask every episode, and that's how can the community get involved?
Yeah, as you're saying, showing up, Fedora Social Hour, coming to it, just joining the chat, fedoraproject.org, Fedora discussion. There's a social section there called the water cooler. I think posting an introduction there and saying, "Hey, I'm new here," uh, and uh, you know, come to a release party when Fedora Linux 42 comes out. We'll have an online release party of some sort. We're working on the format for that, so I don't know quite what it'll look like. But kind of those social things to just kind of see what's going on, and then find somewhere interesting that you want to you interested in the podcast? Are you interested in design? Do you want to work on technical level things? Do you want to help us move to using image mode atomic for everything? Like there's space for all of those kind of things, and no matter your skill level or what your background is, I'm sure there's something in Fedora that's there. But the first step is just come by and say hi, and then we'll see what happens from there.
As big of a discourse advocate as you are, I'm surprised you didn't mention that there's typically a quarterly thread on discourse for new contributors.
Oh,
So if you jump over to the Fedora discourse, you can usually find a bunch of folks that just signed up for the first time and introduce themselves, and there's usually GitHub links and list of interests, that kind of thing.
yeah, I really think that's a really nice idea because it's less intimidating to add yourself to a big thread of other people saying hi than it is to start your own new topic. Hey, all about me. Which, if you feel like doing, you are welcome to. That's what the space is for. But we also want to make sure that you don't have to, feel like you've got to make that big leap just to get involved at first.
Hmm. There's plenty of space in the Fedora community for not just one more, but hundreds more. The community is growing. The community is friendly. So I can't imagine not being involved with the Fedora community. I've been a Fedora user since like Fedora Core 4, I think, was probably as far back as I've gone, and I've only been an active member of the community for the last couple of years. And if there's one thing I could change, it would be being a member of the community for a lot longer than just being a silent user. It's a great space to be, plenty to learn, plenty to do.
um, One of the things that we've really tried to do in Fedora is to make it so that that line is easy, so that that anyone who uses Fedora Linux is they're really already part of the community. They
Hmm.
just might not quite know it yet, and so
Right.
we don't want to make a big like barrier of here's the fence you must jump over to get onto this side. Just uh, you're you're already here actually, and it's part of the marketing thing with it's your operating system. And that's one of the things that um, makes open source. It's not just Fedora, but open source and community developed software really special. Is it's something that it belongs to everybody, and you're already part of it by using it. And it's just a little bit more to just see what else you can get involved in with it.
So as we're wrapping, I want to give you a chance. Anything you want to say, anything you want to share with the community, closing thoughts, what's on your mind?
I guess as doing my farewell tour, I guess here I'll say just thank you to everybody in Fedora for being so awesome and amazing all of these years and supporting me when I was wrong, supporting me when I'm right sometimes. Like it's great. It's been a wonderful experience, and I'm glad to be part of the community, and I'm so happy to continue to be.
Well, we are very thankful that you're not going far, and we'll have to come up with excuses to drag you back on this show.
It might actually end up being easier as I have
That's true.
fewer directions I'm pulled in, and I
We'll have to make you an honorary host then.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can lobby for some sort of Fedora Project Leader emeritus title or something. I feel like it.
There you go. Well, thank you all for joining us. This has been an exciting look at 2025 and a bit of a start to the upcoming FPL transition. So, Matthew, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate sitting down and chatting. Um, Thank you for being flexible with your schedule, so we could get this recorded ahead of time. But if you're listening, definitely subscribe, hit that like button. The like button helps bring other viewers that are interested in Fedora and Linux and open source to the channel. So please, I know it's dumb, but hit the little thumbs up button. It'll take you half a second, and hit subscribe. and grab the notification bell. That way you get notified. We are chugging right along in 2025. I'm hoping to continue that momentum. We've got ideas for topics around RISC-V, as I mentioned. We're going to try and do some more day in the life. We have other downstream distributions that are built on Fedora that are part of the Fedora extended family that we've got on the radar, and I'm hoping to dive into some topics around things like virtualization, maybe some of the SIGs. AI is always out there lingering on the periphery. While I am a user of AI agents, I have my doubts as to the sustainability of that aspect. But I'd love to bring some people on and change my mind about that. So if you are interested in a topic, please let us know. Or even better, if you aren't shy around a microphone, please jump on, and we'd love to do an interview, real intense, as Matthew will tell you. I'm quite the interrogator, but definitely looking forward to some upcoming episodes.
Me too. Thank you very much again.
With that said, thank you all for joining us, and we'll be back again in 2 weeks. Until then, take care.